And everything's on the internet now. God, I remember, like you, I go back to the days of manuscripts and physical manuscripts and the book, Leonard Maltin's famous book that I worked on of Mice and Magic. I feel like I'm doing a plug, but I still remember, it would have been 1979. Oh my God. I still remember being in the room with the manuscript for this book, and it was like at least 4 to 5 feet tall. And it was, each page, and we were putting it in boxes to send across town to the publisher, to edit and work on and everything. But I still remember that's the way it was, and it's definitely not like that anymore. And anyway,
It's not like that anymore, and I miss it. And I miss elements of it. I'm excited. Well, last week I have the cover story in a French comic magazine.
Mhm.
It was the first time in at least 10 years that, and I've written hundreds of pieces, in the last 10 years, but it was like the first time in the last 10 years that I actually have a physical copy, but it was actually printed,
Right.
right? And I missed that. I have a piece that's coming out in the American Bystander in the next issue. So I'm excited about that. It's like I'm
Huh.
excited that it's actually going to be a printed thing.
I know,
And
it doesn't. Is this such a difference? This is not. This is both the same and different. I don't have any. Well, let me put it this way: the last what a conversation we have. Last summer with the San Diego Comic Con,
yeah, yeah,
I got paid to write an article for it, as I have done in the past too. But this is one of those big feature articles, and the
okay,
thing is, um, the last 2 years they don't print they don't print it. They don't
yeah,
print the book. Now
yeah,
that's a great book. It's a great magazine.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
I know.
whatever you want to call it. And and the last time I was in it a few years ago, I mean, I love that the one
Sure.
I was the last one I was in. It had great articles. It's one of the rare things like that I keep on my bookshelf. It's so good. And the I can't, but I keep saying to people there, I go, wait a minute, this is a Comic Con. The people who come here collect physical magazines, or at least, and this has got great stuff in it. And why wouldn't you want a souvenir? Plus, they're losing out on the advertising. I mean,
Right.
there's so many reasons why they should be printing it. I can't figure out why they're not. Anyway, that's my own little gripe. And that's really the first time I think I've written for something like that, and it's not been physical. I have the opposite experience because I've written for I mean, I don't really write for magazines often, but Animation Magazine is one of them that I write for, and they still print a physical copy of it and things like that. And anyway, it's very, very irritating. I still think in magazine terms. Maybe you do too.
Sure,
I'm
of course.
always thinking about magazines. I'm a big nut for at the present. I've been reading. Somebody gifted me like all of the 1950s issues of not a comic book thing. It's Films in Review, which I'm a big film buff too.
Sure, sure.
And I've been reading these, and they're great. I just love reading this 19 because they're writing about movies that are now considered classics, but they're writing about them like they just came out, and sometimes they miss the mark and don't like it at all. And but it's so great to read this magazine, and it's a little magazine. I have it on my shelf back here. It's a little magazine, it's a little square magazine like this, and it has its own layout, and it's black and white, and I just love it as a physical object. And I keep thinking I'd love to do an animation magazine that looks like this.
Yeah, yeah.
This would be a very cool thing. I would even do it in the 50s graphics and stuff, and it would just be
Sure.
a magazine. I've been thinking like that forever in my little life. I'm
Well,
strange.
I'll tell you what I'm doing is
Yeah.
I'm making my own zines. I'm gonna my plan is to do about four a year of my
Hmm.
own small press run, maybe 100 issues, 100 copies or something like that. But really well done. And some of them are going to be actually just articles that I wrote for the Comics Journal, revised pieces. Some of them are just going to be on just completely new topics. And the long-term plan is that, maybe coming up with some sort of print magazine that is, comic related, but going back to like what the Comics Journal used to be to a certain degree, not nasty or anything, or it's not Gary's voice, but
Right.
having something that's actually physically produced, that is out there, that's covering as a as a record, rather than just something that's just digital. And
Yeah.
I really miss it. And maybe it's just I'm going to be turning 60 in a couple of months. And
Mhm.
I grew up with the love of the printed materials, and started making my own little magazines when I was a little kid,
Mm.
and continued to do that my whole life basically.
Right.
And now I'm back to doing it, and I'm really
Yeah.
happy about it. So
Yeah. But I've had two or three contributors die on me in the last 10 years, which is weird.
yeah.
So,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
anyway.
I mean, that's just, it's just part of the, I mean, that the last 2 years, year and a half,
Mm.
I'd say the majority of the articles, long articles I wrote for the Comics Journal, were long obituary memorial
Uh,
pieces for people. A bunch of other people's, started dying, and I was just like, well, there should be records. But what I'm also doing though is I'm turning some of those into printed forms, right?
yeah.
So I just I have one, I have a dummy copy of it done now, but I'll print up 100 copies of it or something. And I just did one for Elaine Kaminsky Crumb, and I'm going to do the same thing for a couple of the other. I mean, I wrote about 15 of them, in the last 10 year or so, or year and a half, I guess. Maybe not that many. It just seems like it, but there was a lot of them. But I think they should exist in other than just being on the internet somewhere,
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
can also make them look, you can control the imagery. I mean,
Yeah.
from doing something online, doing your own, blog and website online, you only have a limited ability to for what something ends up looking like, right? As opposed to a much more flexibility when you're actually making what's, a magazine. So